On this episode of China Uncensored, a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. We live in the age of information. Why, someone's probably on your computer right now, looking through your personal files. So I hope you're an interesting person. We have connected all of our lives, personal, professional, and national, to the internet. Those poetic words came from James B. Comey, the director of the FBI, at a hearing in November for the Senate Homeland Security Committee. But this Garden of Eden of information has a serpent slithering through it, threatening the digitally ignorant and naked, tempting us to eat the fruit of forbidden knowledge by hacking our way to it. At the same hearing, Mr. Comey went on to say that cyber attacks most likely will become a bigger threat to national security than traditional terrorism, even more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. Fortunately, there's one country standing up for cyber justice: China. As Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Qin Gan just said, China is a staunch defender of network security, and the Chinese government, military, and associated personnel have never engaged in online theft of trade secrets. And despite this commitment, China has suffered completely outrageous accusations from the US, like being called the most threatening actor in cyberspace. And here I always thought it was Megabyte. Where's the proof, China asks. Where's the proof? Well, apparently there was a lot of proof. Last Monday, the U.S. Justice Department brought charges against these 5 guys. I like the wanted poster look, makes it feel like the Wild West. These men are part of the Chinese military hacking group known as Unit 61398. You might remember them from when California-based cybersecurity firm Mandiant released a report that they had tracked their cyber attacks in 141 organizations in 20 different industries. They even pinpointed the unit to this one building in Shanghai. So what has been China's response to all this proof that they had been asking for? Well, they just called it ungrounded and absurd. Fictitious even. Now at this point you may be thinking, isn't it a little hypocritical for the U.S. to be calling out anyone on this, considering that whole Edward Snowden, the NSA is spying on everyone thing? Well, no, it's not. That's because what the Obama administration is doing here is drawing a distinction between traditional espionage and intelligence gathering done by governments and these kind of cyber assaults launched by the Chinese military against U.S. companies with the intention of stealing intellectual property for economic gain and advantage. They aren't saying don't hack the United States government, they're saying don't hack United States companies. It's an open secret that China is hacking into the Pentagon, U.S. security networks, and the like, but that's not what's being brought up here. The charges are mainly about corporate espionage and intellectual property theft against the U.S. steel industry. Specifically, 5 companies and 1 trade union were singled out as victims in the indictment. Several of the companies were both working with and competing against major Chinese state-owned companies. These Chinese companies could directly benefit from the information the hackers accessed. These kind of cyber attacks, the one that target economic interest, not national security interest, may cost the U.S. $100 billion a year in lost jobs and stolen property. So what does it mean that the Obama administration is only targeting this one facet of Chinese cyber warfare? They're drawing a line between hacking into military intelligence networks for national security secrets and hacking computer networks to get an unfair economic advantage. They're saying the former is traditional spying and that's fair game. You hack us, we hack you, and we'll do the best we can to keep you from doing that. Spies can now work from the comfort of their own living rooms, which explains the newest James Bond movie. But hacking for economic gain and intellectual property theft is off limits. And this is totally different from the allegations made by Edward Snowden. Now, the CCP uses Snowden to cloud the issue to say that the US is the aggressor in the digital sphere, but the fact of the matter is, the United States is not hacking into foreign companies to give US companies an economic advantage, and that's the kind of behavior this lawsuit is targeting. Now, some may think that's a stupid distinction to make, especially considering that the Chinese government considers economic enrichments of its state-owned enterprises a matter of national security anyways. But actually, the lines that the Obama administration is trying to draw are very important. Cyber warfare is the new weapon of the 21st century. Now, all's fair in love and war, right? I mean, that's why I'm stealing your girlfriend and giving you smallpox. But just as the 20th century saw attempts to create rules and boundaries for the use of atomic, biological, and chemical weapons, and guidelines for the treatment of prisoners of war, it makes sense to do the same for a weapon equally as dangerous and with just as much potential for collateral damage. Theoretically, a cyber attack could shut off all the lights in New York. A computer virus could wipe out the files of an entire corporation. Something like that actually did happen last year when a computer virus believed to have originated in Iran wiped out 3/4 of the corporate files of a major oil company. An image of a burning American flag was left instead. And remember, this is just what computers are capable of in the first 20 years of the 21st century. What will they be capable of in 100? So doesn't it make sense to get some ground rules laid out now? But that would require cooperation and agreement between the US and China, and since China doesn't engage in cyber attacks, that doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. And more than that, when the CCP uses the military to steal intellectual property from foreign companies, it kills innovation. It not only stops Chinese companies from innovating, it can become a global phenomenon. Why break new ground when you can just steal other people's ideas? So when the CCP gets involved on a state level in this kind of corporate espionage, it drags down the whole world. But in the meantime, as the US accuses China and China responds with denials and its own accusations, it's probably safe to say all your personal details are still floating around the internet somewhere for all to see. Don't worry, most of your friends will probably still like you, at least on Facebook. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. What do you think of the charges brought against China by the US Justice Department and the distinction the Obama administration is trying to make? Leave your comments below, subscribe, and check out the Facebook and Twitter page. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.